Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point on AFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name. We're going to have Bob Vanderplatz of the Family Leader, the leading pro-family organization in Iowa, will be on at the bottom of the hour because it looks like the straw poll in Iowa, which is the first kickoff event of the political calendar, every presidential campaign. The Iowa straw poll is a huge deal. It's looking right now like the state GOP may not have the straw poll in 2016. They may not do it. And apparently the Family Leader is poised to step in and fill that gap. They're going to have a major conference the same weekend that the straw poll is normally held. So this pro-family evangelical group headed by Bob Vanderplatz could wind up being a very, very important key player in the 2016 presidential campaign. This is a breaking story. We'll have Bob Vanderplatz on bottom of the hour to talk about all that. Now, before we jump into that, I want to turn our attention to what's going on in with this trial in Fort Hood with Major Malik Nadal Hasan. Now, as you are aware, he shot up Fort Hood in November of 2009. He did it in the name of Allah. He jumped up on the table in the cafeteria, shouted Allahu Akbar, and then started hosing off his comrades in arms. 13 dead, 14 if you count the unborn baby that one of the victims was carrying, and I do. So 14 murder victims as far as I'm concerned, over 30 wounded. And I want you to grab this story by Chelsea Schilling on WorldNet Daily, WND.com, about the kind of life that Major Hasan has been living since the shooting. Now, he was paralyzed. He was shot by a civilian police officer. And again, this is one of the things that just absolutely boggles my mind. In fact, it just completely ticks me off that this is a cafeteria full of soldiers. These are people that we have spent good money to train in the use of lethal force, in the use of firearms, so they not only can protect themselves, but they can protect the safety and security of the United States of America. And so in this room full of people who are experts in the use of guns, not one single solitary soldier had a weapon except for Major Hasan. It was a gun-free zone. You want to know why 13 people died that day, 31 were injured? Because our own military, this is insane to me. This is insane to me. Our own military had made the military base, the military cafeteria, a gun-free zone. So I'm going to put some of the blame for this, some of the not blame, but culpability for this on the Pentagon, on these rules that make absolutely no sense to me whatsoever. It turned our soldiers, our fighting men and women, it turned them into a human shooting gallery. They had no way to defend themselves. And it's just absurd to me that we've got a military base like Fort Hood, which is depending upon civilian police officers for protection. I do not get that. I don't care how many different ways somebody tries to explain that to me. I do not get it. I will not get it. I think it's just frankly stupid to have a situation like that. If this guy jumps up on a cafeteria table in a room full of armed soldiers, number one, he's not going to do it because he knows he won't get Akbar out before he gets cut down. But he jumps up on the table, pulls out his rifle, shouts Allahu Akbar. He's liable to get cut down in cold blood before he fires the first round. Somebody sitting at the same table is going to draw down on him, and that's the end of the threat. So I mean, this is not what I intended to talk about, but that just really grinds my gears. And to me, this is not an innocent policy decision because we have 14 people are dead because of whoever came up with this policy. Now, the trial is going to start. I mentioned this yesterday. We got this absurd situation where back in 1865, Abraham Lincoln was assassinated on April 14. By July 7, 2.5 months later, less than 3 months later, the assassins and the conspirators had been apprehended. They'd been tracked down. They'd been hunted down. They'd been pursued. They'd been arrested. They had been tried. They had been convicted. And they had been hung by the neck until dead in less than 3 months. Here we are 4 years later, and this trial is just now starting. You know, Martin Luther King Jr. said correctly that justice delayed is justice denied. And those that are members of these families of the victims, justice has been denied to them for 4.5 years. And I've got a couple of sound bites here from who called Dan Celia's program this morning, talked to Fred Jackson. She's the mother of one of the soldiers that was shot. He survived. He lived. Severe injuries. You'll hear about that in the sound bites that are coming up here in just the next couple of minutes. But I want to read for you what has been going on in the life of Major Nidal Malik Hasan since that day. This is according to a investigative story done by KXAS-TV, the NBC affiliate in Dallas, Texas. He now receives free helicopter rides from the local jail almost every day. So this guy gets free helicopter rides. He lives in a private room that has been built specifically to accommodate his medical needs. He wears a beard, which is in violation of Army regulations. Why they let him get away with that, I do not understand any one part of that. Strap him down to a chair and shave him. Criminally, is this the United States military or what? So it just shows you how lax our military has gotten in some of these standards of discipline. So he gets to wear a beard. Nobody else in the military gets to wear a beard, and he's still in the military. Ladies and gentlemen, he has collected almost $300,000 in salary. He is still being paid while he is violating military regulations by wearing a beard. And after he has confessed, he's confessed to the killings. I mean, I don't even know why we're having a trial. He said, I did it. I'm the shooter. Said it this morning. I'm the shooter. I did it. I shot him down. I did it for Allah, to keep him from killing my fellow Muslims. There's no need for a trial. He's confessed to this with words that come out of his own mouth and has confessed this for a long time. So he wears a beard against Army regulations. He travels with his own security detail. He has received numerous trial delays, put this thing off now for 4 years, and he collects a full salary of $80,000 a year. He's getting $80,000 a year. Many of his victims say they have been forgotten. Now, the Army has paid for his military defense lawyers. They paid for his paralegals, and they paid for experts for his defense. Now, let's listen to the soundbite. This is a phone call from mom of one of the victims at Fort Hood. Here's audio clip 1. Let's listen.
My son Matthew was one of the 32 that was actually shot at Fort Hood.
He's one of the survivors, I'm assuming?
Yes. My son is a survivor. We didn't know for a long time if he was going to live or die. But the main thing is this. Our military knew Major Hasan had these tendencies. When he was at the hospital in Washington there, they knew he had these tendencies, and they did nothing to try to eliminate him from the service, to try to protect our soldiers. If we know we have somebody who is radicalized in the military, I don't understand why the military will not get him out.
So she's making the point, look, this guy made this presentation at Walter Reed Medical Center in 2007. At the time, we went through it on this program when it surfaced. This program started in July of 2009. This is one of the first major stories we talked about here on Focal Point. And I went through with you the 50-slide PowerPoint presentation where he talked about all the verses that prohibit Muslims from shedding the blood of Muslims because their job is to shed the blood of infidels. And he said, look, I am a Muslim first. I am an American second. I'm a Muslim first. That means that my first obligation is to kill infidels and to protect my fellow Muslims from infidel soldiers who want to kill them. He says, I cannot go to Afghanistan. They were going to deploy him to Afghanistan the end of the month of November. He says, I can't go. I'm a Muslim. If I go to Afghanistan, you're going to ask me to go to war against my fellow Muslim soldiers. I cannot do it. I've got to protect them because I am a Muslim first. I am an American second. So he jumps up on a table, shouts Allahu Akbar, and starts hosing off his infidel comrades in arms. This is why, by the way, I said it at the time, and I was one of the first to say it, got quite a bit of criticism for it, but I stand by it. We shouldn't have Muslims in the military. I mean, Major Hasan is Exhibit A of why it should be contrary to military policy to allow Muslims to enlist in the United States military, because their highest allegiance, according to their own religion, according to their holy book, their highest allegiance is to Allah. Now, a devout Christian will say, I'm a Christian first and I'm an American second. We all ought to say that. We're a Christian first, we're an American second. Here's the difference. The more devout a Christian becomes, the more he loves his country, the more he loves the United States, the more of an asset he becomes to American security. The more devout a Muslim becomes, the more of a threat he becomes to American security because his allegiance is to a God who tells him to kill us. Now, here is the second audio bite from this mom talking about what her son's experience has been, how this attack went down, and what her son's experience has been since then.
Major Hasan was directly behind my son. He heard him yell, Allah Akbar. Since he'd been to Iraq twice, he dropped directly to the floor, and he laid on the floor, and he said that the sounds and the smells weren't right. And he looked up, and he saw a master sergeant on his knees because he had been shot through the back. There was blood spurting out of his chest. He saw the gun aiming at this higher-ranking sergeant. My son dove over that sergeant. My son was safe. He had not been shot. But my son dove over a higher-ranking sergeant to save him because that's what he's been trained to do. You save the higher-up. He dove over him. He got shot once in the head, 3 in the back. When he tried to roll off, he couldn't get off the sergeant that he was protecting. He'd been shot so much in the chest that when he tried to raise up, the only thing he could raise up was his buttock. He couldn't get up. Major Hasan saw that movement and shot him again. He has lost his urinary bladder, urethra, ureter, several feet of his intestines. That bullet came to rest on his left kidney. He's got fragments in his skull. He's got bullets in his back. And for this act of heroism, I mean, I'm the mother, so his act of heroism, he gets nothing because the government has said this is workplace violence. They will not admit it was terrorism. He's not eligible for a Purple Heart. He's not eligible for any type of medal for saving a soldier's life and risking his own when he was perfectly safe. He gets nothing. I don't understand why. Where's the question on the fact that this was terrorism? This was definitely terrorism.
No question about it. In fact, Major Hasan has identified himself recently in this past week as a soldier of Allah. This was not workplace violence. This was Islamic jihad. Focal Point, AFR Talk.